Hello and welcome. I'm Ellie Richardson and you're watching The World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines of this hour. Former Labour Cabinet Minister Peter Mandelson has been released on police bail following questioning over alleged misconduct in public office. Scotland Yard opened an inquiry into the ex-business secretary after material surfaced indicating he may have passed classified Whitehall intelligence to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. US President Donald Trump threatened nations with punishing tariff hikes if they play games after his trade policy setback before the Supreme Court. President Donald Trump has denied reports that the top US military officer has flagged the risks of major operations against Iran, saying Washington would easily defeat Tehran in any conflict. Ukraine is marking the 4th anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion with a show of solidarity from its staunchest allies and no immediate end in sight to Europe's biggest war since World War II. The United States is holding meetings in Geneva with Russia and Chinese delegations about nuclear weapons after the final treaty restricting Washington and Moscow's nuclear deployment expired. Mexico has deployed 10,000 troops to quell clashes sparked by the killing of the country's most wanted drug lord that claimed dozens of lives. News of his death triggered violence, with cartel members blocking roads in 20 states and torching vehicles and businesses. South Korea's former president Yoon Suk-yeol has filed an appeal against an insurrection conviction stemming from his 2024 martial law declaration. A landmark social media addiction trial resumed with a YouTube executive insisting that the Google-owned company's aim was to give people value, not hook them on harmful binge viewing. And for your top stories this hour, investigators have examined the site of a deadly bomb blast in Moscow's Savilovsky train station. The explosion, which took place just after midnight, killed one police officer and left two others injured. The attacker, who detonated an explosive device near a police patrol car, died at the scene. Russian authorities have launched an investigation into the incident, charging the assailant with attempted murder of law enforcement officers and illegal possession of explosive. This blast comes on the 4th anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, adding to the series of attacks in Moscow in recent weeks. We are now being joined by Professor Georgi, who is a professor for Russian Academy of Science. Thank you for joining us here today on NewsX World. Thank you. In the context of the broader Russian-Ukraine war, what are the possible implications if violence spills over regularly onto Russian soil, and how might this affect domestic policies and civil liabilities?
Well, I would say it causes frustration, but at the same time it raises the spirit that the war is righteous and that we should defeat the enemy to stop this terrorism. Because all of Russia is now affected. Every day we saw dozens and hundreds of drones attacking major Russian cities and major civil objects in deep Russia. And Ukraine is demanding more of the missiles to be able to bring in even more death and harm. And they are targeting high-level officials. They're killing people just at the doorsteps, at their own houses, and they're blowing up now the policemen at the very center and at the very downtown Moscow. So this is a terrorist regime which should be changed, to my mind, and more Russians understand that compromises and leniency are not affordable. We just cannot afford it at the time. So in a broader context of the war, now in its fifth year, 4 years ago it started, and now many people understand that Ukraine wouldn't have been able to withstand a Russian attack if it was a surprise attack, if they were not prepared. And the more and more evidence show that they have been preparing for the war with Russia, with the territories populated by Russian population for a long time, since at least early 2010s. And therefore, some people say we were too late to strike, and we shouldn't have conducted any negotiation or persuasion. We should have struck on Ukraine much earlier to prevent this from happening. And this is a good lesson for the future, because we now understand that Ukraine was supported from the start by the whole West, which wanted to bring defeat and bring damage to Russia. And so more and more people understand the reasons for this war and the righteousness of this war.
Thank you, Professor Georgi, but please don't go too far, as I will be back with you very shortly. The 45th edition of Cobra Gold, Southeast Asia's largest and longest running military exercise, officially began today in Rayong province in Thailand. Over 8,000 troops from 30 countries are participating in this year's drills, which will continue until March the 6th. The focus of the exercise is on combined joint all-domain operations, integrating land, sea, air, space and cyber warfare tactics. This year's drills, however, are placing a particular emphasis on modern warfare challenges, including cyber defense, space operations and counter-drone strategies. US Army officials have reiterated the importance of the strong partnership between the US and Thailand, highlighting their shared commitment to peace and security in the Indo-Pacific region. Furthermore, Cobra Gold continues to evolve, adapting to new security challenges and promoting closer cooperation and interoperability between participating nations. Regardless of the scale, the exercise remains a key platform for fostering regional stability and strengthening military alliances. Let's listen in.
The exercise will emphasize on military capabilities in joint multi-domain operations, consisting of land, sea, air, and importantly, space and cyber. A new and crucial dimension of the 21st century security. It will also focus on integrating knowledge and training methods to align with the current global situation. On this occasion, I now declare Cobra Gold 26 officially open.
We are now being joined back with Professor Georgi Toleraya. Thank you for joining us back here today on NewsX World. In the context of rising geopolitical competition in the Indo-Pacific, how might such large scale of drills influence power dynamics between the US, China and other ASEAN nations?
Well, actually, I'm now in Thailand, speaking from the place, not exactly the Rayong province, but nearby. So these are the regular exercises which take place yearly, but this year we have significant differences. First of all, the exercises are aimed at with special accent on space and cyber warfare. So some lessons of Ukrainian war has been taken into account, and Thailand and US and other participants, there are about 30 countries, they're practicing the warfare of the 21st century. And it is widely interpreted as a sort of anti-Chinese exercise, although China do participate in a limited form in this exercise in humanitarian part of them, but still strategically speaking, it is basically to contain China. And the US and Thailand are here to show that they're in one boat, especially the US is having this aim. Second, what is important is the Cambodia factor. You know that the war with Cambodia, the conflict with Cambodia have been raging all through the year, and Thailand as a result have occupied some territories which they now control. And Cambodia is conspicuously absent from this year's exercises. So the Cambodia might be taking this as a sort of aggressive collective pressure on itself, and that doesn't really increase the peace and security in the region.
And what role do multinational military exercises like Cobra Gold play in strengthening interoperability and trust among participating nations' armed forces?
Well, there are very different nations taking part, even from Europe, Australia as well. So I say this is a part of the broader US scheme to have their foothold everywhere, especially in this strategically important area of Southeast Asia.
Thank you so much, Professor Georgie, for joining us here today on NewsX World. Thank you. According to reports, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has said his government would back removing Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor from the line of succession to the British throne. In a letter to UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Albanese reportedly said Australians view Mountbatten-Windsor as inappropriate to remain in line following serious allegations linked to Jeffrey Epstein. Reports suggest that New Zealand also supports the proposal, and any chance requires approval from all realms. British authorities are reportedly investigating Mountbatten-Windsor, including searches of his former Windsor home, while he denies the wrongdoings. We are now being joined by retired Major General Rajan Kochar, who's a senior strategic and international affairs expert, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you for joining us here today on NewsX World. How significant is Australia's public endorsement of the move, being one of the first Commonwealth countries to back it, for Commonwealth unity and the monarchy's future?
Thank you, Ali, because this is a very, very interesting take from Australia, because King Charles III is also Australia's head of state, and removing someone from the royal succession now isn't just a UK domestic policy. It also requires legislative changes approved across all realms, and I think they also share the same monarch. So I think it's a very significant move, because Australia being the first Commonwealth country who has made this statement, and maybe New Zealand will also follow suit shortly, because there has been a statement from the New Zealand government also saying that it would support a UK-led proposal to remove Andrew, and stressing that no one is above the law. And not only, this has larger ramifications to all countries whose leaders have figured in the Epstein file, because we are seeing such kind of stringent action on the part of UK only, but we haven't seen anything happening in the United States. And that is one important aspect, because it reflects on the misconduct in public office, because anybody who uh, who has been compromised in this fashion in the terms of the Epstein files, and then the investigation follows thereafter. And if he has been a prima facie, if there is an involvement seen in the investigation, then I think these are the measures which need to be taken. And I think UK has set a very good example, which possibly other countries also need to follow. Because I have seen in our country also leaders have been named, but so far no action has been taken. And in the US also we have seen certain prominent leaders who have been named in the Epstein file, and we don't see any action taking place there also. The next important aspect is public opinion. You see, this move is not only procedural, it reflects a widespread public revulsion in many Commonwealth countries towards a deeper allegation revealed in the Epstein files. And I think broadly, if we consider this, this would be a very clear step on the part of the Commonwealth countries, and I'm sure other countries will also follow suit.
Thank you so much, Major General Dr. Rajan, for joining us here today on NewsX World. We are coming in with some breaking news. According to internal company documents, Air India is experiencing a surge in technical incidents, including engine oil and fuel leaks, reaching the highest rate in at least 14 months. The document also revealed that the number of technical issues per 1,000 flights more than quadrupled between December 24 and January 2026. In response, the airline is working on systematic improvements across flight operations, training and engineering to prevent the reoccurrence of these incidents. According to internal company documents, Air India is experiencing a surge in technical incidents, including engine oil and fuel leaks, reaching the highest rate in at least 14 months. The document also revealed that the number of technical issues per 1,000 flights more than quadrupled between December 2024 and January 2025. In response, the airline is working on systematic improvements across the flights. Training and engineering as well are having improvements to prevent these reoccurrence of these incidents. According to reports in January, Air India recorded 1.09 technical incidents per 1,000 flights, which is more than quadrupled between December 2024 and January 2026. In response, the airline is working on systemic improvements across flight operations, training and engineering to prevent the reoccurrence of these incidents. According to reports in January, Air India recorded 1.09 technical incidents per 1,000 flights, quadrupling from levels of just 0.26 in December 2024. It did not provide earlier data. Air India operated more than 17,500 flights in January and recorded 23 technical incidents on its international and domestic flights, according to the document, which is not public. At least 21 of those incidents were investigated formally by the airline. India's Civil Aviation Ministry told lawmakers this month that 82.5% of the 166 Air India aircraft's IT analysed since January 2025 had recurring technical defects, compared with 36.5% for market leader Indigo. Internal company documents, India is experiencing we're coming at you with some more breaking news. A 5.6 magnitude earthquake has just struck off the northeastern coast of Taiwan in Yilan County. The quake had a depth of approximately 66 kilometers, according to the island's weather administration. Buildings in the capital, Taipei, were briefly shaken, but there are no immediate reports of damage or casualties. Continue to monitor the region for any aftershocks and urge residents to stay alert. Taiwan is located in a seismically active area, making earthquakes relatively common, though strong ones can still disrupt early life. Emergency services say they are ready to respond if needed. Is he here? We are now being joined by VK Joshi, who's a former director, Geological Survey of India, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you for joining us here today on NewsX World. Thank you. What factors contribute to Taiwan's high seismic activity?
Actually, Taiwan is an island which was formed about 4 to 5 million years ago, because due to convergence of 5 plates, tectonic plates, and those tectonic plates are still active and they keep on moving. As a result of that subsurface movement, these earthquakes take place. And since it is very prone to earthquakes like Japan, they have taken adequate measures for safeguarding the building, but sometimes the earthquake is too powerful. And this 5.6 earthquake they have to be careful, because it could be a foreshock of a major earthquake, which may come any time. We never know whether it is a foreshock or an earthquake itself. So it's a highly seismic area, and it needs a lot of precautions. That's it.
And what precautions can residents take in seismic zones like Taiwan?
You see, main precaution has to be taken at the time of construction of buildings. Those buildings have to be designed to be earthquake safe. It is difficult to design a building earthquake proof, but it can be earthquake safe. So it can withstand major shaking, one. Secondly, those who can manage to get out of the buildings in the time of earthquake, the residents, should get out as fast as possible without using the lifts. And but I know that from a 40-story, 60-story building, it is impossible to go out. I have no idea whether they have chutes for evacuating people or not in Taiwan. In Japan, they do have. But now earthquake-resistant technology is there, so they can always have better designs, and I am sure they have.
Thank you so much for joining us here today on our breaking news so soon. Thank you so much. Nearly 2,200 people have been released or had legal restrictions lifted under Venezuela's new amnesty law, according to ruling party lawmaker George Ariza. The law, which was passed last week, offers amnesty for those involved in political protests and violent actions between 2002 and 2025. While human rights groups have criticised the law for not adequately addressing the release of political prisoners, Interim President Delcy Rodriguez has overseen the release of hundreds of detainees, including opposition figures and journalists. More than 3,000 requests for amnesty have been made, with tribunals required to rule within 15 days. Let's listen in to what ruling party lawmaker and president of the Amnesty Commission, George Ariza, and released prisoner John Duke had to say.
Gracias a la ley 177 excarcelaciones, se han dado 2021 libertades plenas a personas que estaban en régimen de presentación y se han recibido en total más de 3.000 solicitudes y siguen llegando en los tribunales del país, en algunos como en Caracas, que se centra mucho, hay personas llevando sus escritos, defensores privados, defensores públicos, el Ministerio Público, las personas que están...
No violar los derechos humanos, no violar los derechos humanos. Si le dan un poder a una persona, no es para oprimir y tampoco no es para hacer injusticia, es para servir al ciudadano, Y gracias a Dios, gracias a todos ustedes, gracias a todas las personas, los ciudadanos venezolanos, venezolanas que oraron por nosotros escuchamos sus oraciones. Gracias por todos, hermanos. Aquí está la libertad.
Paramount Skydance has submitted a higher bid to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery, intensifying the streaming battle with Netflix. The move seeks to address Warner Brothers' concerns about financing while Netflix retains the right to match the offer. The bidding war involves some of Hollywood's most iconic franchises, including Harry Potter and Game of Thrones. Paramount's bid is backed by Oracle billionaire Larry Ellison, and the company says it has clear a path to regulatory approval. Warner Brothers shareholders are set to vote on Netflix's offer on March the 20th, but the deal must still pass US and European antitrust scrutiny. The outcome will determine the future of HBO Max and potentially shift power in the global streaming market. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.